on the brink of the first ever qualifying on Friday, sprint races on Saturday, and the race on Sunday. That means lights out. Welcome into another edition of the F1 Starting Grid. On behalf of Chaz Day, I'm Brock Young, asking you to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter as well as Facebook at Former Racing, and email us if you have any topics for us, theformerracing@gmail.com. Hey, Chaz, we're on the brink of the British Grand Prix on the first look at the Formula One sprint races. Your first take on that, man?
Yeah, man, I am really, really excited. Obviously, the British Grand Prix is one of the best and the most fun races of the year, especially as a Hamilton/Mercedes fan. They tend to do very well in Britain. So yeah, I'm super excited to see what happens. I'm also just generally excited from an F1 standpoint because of all the news coming out lately. But looking forward to this weekend for sure.
Well, I'm like you. I think it's almost should be a turnaround for Lewis Hamilton this season, starting this weekend. In fact, on F1.com, they have 5 reasons we're excited about the British Grand Prix. One of them is sprint races. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to dive into a couple of these right here. And second one is Mercedes upgrades. There's a lot of made of Toto Wolff's comments during the 2 races in Austria. He suggested Mercedes would not be developing their 2021 car any further while Red Bull continue to add it to performance. But there's a bit of difference between developing and upgrading. And Toto Wolff has suggested that there might be some upgrades coming up here in Silverstone, which will help Lewis and Valtteri if possible. You think that will help them over the finish line, or I think this is just a stronger track for Lewis than Max?
So historically, it's been Lewis has been in a stronger car, right? I think this year, I mean, he's won so many times in Silverstone that I think that he has a leg up maybe on the actual track. I didn't even actually realize until this past week that he's only 32 points behind. So
yeah.
I mean, he's not passing him this week, obviously, but yeah, I think Mercedes will definitely make some headway this week, hopefully.
Well, with that said, do you believe that it'll be a 1-2 for Mercedes?
So, I mean, we're already kind of getting into predictions here, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I actually do have Mercedes 1-2. I have Hamilton coming first and Bottas second, and then I have Verstappen coming in third. So, maybe a little bit of a throwback to last season / earlier in this season, but it hasn't been that in what feels like a while. But yeah, I do have Mercedes making a little bit of resurgence this week.
And what was your extra pick?
That's a good question. So I'm thinking about whether to either put Lando can't do any better than he's been doing, so that's definitely not going to be a pick. Let's say if let's say that right now, because so right now Sergio is in 3rd place in the driver's standings. So let's say that Lando is going to pass Sergio this week.
That's a pretty bold statement.
I mean, yes and no. They're only a few points apart. So yes, in the sense that it hasn't been done yet, but
okay. So you see, like, Sergio falling a little bit behind this week.
So yeah, I do think I've just seen Lando go from strength to strength. and I think he's gonna take him this week, and get back into. He won't be on the podium, but I'm seeing him coming in the either fourth or fifth spot, and hopefully Sergio struggles a little bit for more than one reason, because the constructors is also up for grabs when it comes to Red Bull versus Mercedes. So
Absolutely. I'll tell you, giving my picks right quick. We have Max number 1, Lewis number 2, and Sergio's number 3. I still feel Max has the advantage going into this weekend, but that circuit, it could go either way, in my opinion. But from what I saw last year with Lewis Hamilton's last lap on that bad tire, and just Max just coming right at him within a few seconds, that's telling me Max is very competitive on that circuit as well. So even though Lewis,
go ahead.
Even Lewis has dominated on this track for many years.
Yeah, and Verstappen has definitely been competitive, and he's more competitive than he's ever been this year. Obviously, I just feel like consistency wins over time, and I do feel like Verstappen's been so dominant. I feel like he's kind of due for a mistake.
That could happen too, honestly. Said before, I think this could go either way. Lewis or Max could win it out. My extra prediction is Pierre Gasly, and we're going to get to him a little bit more here in a minute. Will finish 7th or higher on the grid. And Mike's picks, we have Max number 1, Valtteri number 2, Lewis number 3, and his extra prediction is Russell will finish
on the podium.
We'll not go there. Russell will finish in the top 10.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But another big thing coming out of this weekend is, and you pointed out earlier, is McLaren's form coming into this weekend, and there just seemed like it's, at least for Lando, they're hitting on all cylinders, and just really performing. And that's one of the 5 things that Formula1.com was looking forward to this weekend is McLaren's form, and particularly Lando Norris, not necessarily Daniel Ricciardo in his struggles the past few races. Your take on that?
So, are you asking about Lando or?
Oh, either one. Lando Norris and McLaren's form coming into this weekend. I mean, you talked about this a little bit earlier too, how he's going to surpass Sergio. Is he going to go in like in the top 5, maybe 4 or 5 spot or something? You see?
Yeah, so I'm looking for him to come in the 4 or 5 spot. Lando in particular is interesting, especially this week. I'm not sure if you heard about him getting mugged at Wembley.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so apparently he was at the stadium or headed to his car outside of the stadium, and he was mugged. And I guess they took his wallet and his watch. So he's said that he wasn't 100%. I don't know how much he's just kind of playing it up. Obviously, it's a dramatic experience, so I believe that it probably affects him to some extent. But with guys like this, they're elite athletes, and things like this, I think, just sharpen their focus. So I think he's going to be on top of it this weekend. He'll come in 4th or 5th, in my opinion.
Well, I'm looking at last year. Lando finished in 9th at the 70th Grand Prix or 70th Anniversary Grand Prix, which was held at Silverstone. There was 2 at Silverstone last year. Lando finished at 9th, and Daniel Ricciardo finished at 14th. when he's with Renault. But the actual British Grand Prix, you had Daniel Ricciardo coming in 4th and Lando coming in 5th.
Well, there'll be no Ricciardo ahead of him this year. We know that for sure.
Yeah, I think he may break into the top 10. I think he's still struggling with that McLaren, honestly.
You talking about Ricciardo?
Yeah.
He's
really.
He hasn't been the same since he's been in Red Bull, to be honest. And I don't think that it's just I actually think that I wouldn't be surprised if he's gotten better as a driver, just all overall, because he seemed like he's been kind of focused in a zone. The Renault move was a strategic one, right? So the idea was like, look, I'm gonna make a step forward in my career by strategically going to this up and coming rising star of a team, which Renault was at the time, right?
Yeah.
Until some other teams made some changes that kind of shifted the dynamic a bit, but it was a strategic move, and it made sense at the time because he was also driving solid. Like he was turning in a bunch of podiums. I mean, we were seeing him up there drinking out of his boots every week, so or every other week. So I don't know whether it's necessarily his driving ability as much as it's his driving ability in the context of, like you said, that particular car. I think he's struggling with that McLaren specifically, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah, he actually did pretty well in Renault, and looked like they were making strides to become higher and stuff like that, because they were right there in the middle field last year. Now, granted, Alpine's more further down now, but
no. So he did solid. He did solid, but what we're talking about though is Renault's expectation was to be in the top 3, and they didn't make any advances on that. So like the whole strategic play was, hey, we're going to get into the 4th place spot, then we're going to make this huge move by getting a top tier driver like Ricciardo was at the time, and that's going to push us over into being one of the top 3 teams, and that did not happen.
It'll be interesting to see this weekend what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you though. I think he'll break the top 10, but I don't know that he'll do much better than maybe 7.
He'll probably limp in there, honestly. And one of the other big stories coming out this weekend, going into this weekend, I should say, is a capacity crowd supposed to be at Silverstone, which means there'll be 140,000 people there.
Ooh.
A massive, massive crowd.
Do you know why I'm excited?
Why is that?
What does that mean for me? Austin.
Oh.
Austin. That means it's going to be a capacity crowd in Austin again.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Hope we get a double header, honestly.
Oh, if we get 2, and I know they're talking about it, that would be phenomenal.
That'd be great. In fact, we talked about this last week, how Australia is now pretty much off the calendar.
Yeah.
So they got to fill that in. And so they're making the United States, or here at COTA, is making strides to have the double header back to back.
Ricardo's just getting hit on all sides, man. I mean, losing his home Grand Prix. I mean, that's
yeah.
It's not like a huge thing, but it's not nothing.
No, yeah, it's something, all right.
For a driver, I mean, there's only 24 of them, or 20 of them.
23.
23 drivers right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, 20. I'm sorry, 23 Grand Prix, but yeah.
No, I'm talking about drivers. I mean, there's only 20 drivers, right? So, like having a home Grand Prix is what I'm saying is a pretty big deal for drivers. So losing that it's almost like a home game, right?
Mm-hmm. Which helps Lewis, Lando and George Russell there, all from the Great Britain area. Talked to a couple of people on Twitter that they're heading over there. They're real excited to see that. So it's happy to. I'm anxious to see some more fans in the stand like we did at the Red Bull Ring, which was fantastic to see. Which moves us on to the Twitter question of the week: who will get the second seat at Mercedes? And the results are 78.8% George Russell over 21.2% Valtteri Bottas will get that seat. A couple of y'all did chime in as far as comments. In Jerome F1 says, I don't see Mercedes having anything to lose with Russell. He's probably going to be great in sponsors and his consistency. The only possible issue is his personal clash if Russell upsets the balance with Lewis. And Lewis has stated several times over that that's what makes Valtteri a great number two, is not necessarily he knows his place, but he's a good teammate and morale. He knows how to help the team. But to the point of Toto Wolff, they got to look at the future. George Russell is the future right now, not just for Mercedes, but for F1 in particular. Your take on that, Chaz?
No, I completely agree. And let's be clear. When he says that he's a great teammate, he is saying that he's a great number two, right? So, it's kind of implied, unfortunately, unfortunately for Bottas. But either way, I think the move is pretty clear. Bottas he's been doing a solid job. I would say all in all, he's been doing the best that he could possibly do. Mind you, he can't really have done better than how he's done. Even if he hasn't performed well individually, he's performed well enough to give the team constructors championships, right? So with that in mind, he literally could not have done better. So getting someone else in that seat, like a Russell, especially when a transition is coming in with a new car, it's the perfect time. So, yeah.
Now, we talked about this extensively several times before, but you just pointed out with the new car coming in, and it was just announced today, with the time of this recording, that they revealed a little bit more of the car itself, of the 2022 car. But do you see a riffle between Russell and Hamilton like they did it back in 2016 with Russell and Nico Rosberg?
Hamilton and Rosberg? I don't.
Hamilton, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know a ton about Russell's personality. What are your thoughts there?
Mm-hmm. Now let's just notice also that Russell might stick with Williams too. Honestly,
that'd be a mistake.
He was quoted by saying that he is excited to see where Williams is going and how they're going to progress here in the next few years. And they
hell in a handbasket?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, he might be drinking the same Kool-Aid Mike is, but they see potential. They see potential at Williams, so he may stick with Williams because he said nothing is signed yet on the dotted line. So he's still.
No, and I agree with him. I think he has potential in the same way that that every child has potential, because they're only potential. Right? I feel like Williams is only potential. That being said, I don't think that they'll get better. Especially, I think, to be honest, I think a change like this, I know a lot of people have been saying that, a change like this is exactly what the teams need in order to kind of shake up the roster and maybe reorganize the standings. To be honest, I think that this is probably the worst thing that could happen for Williams, as they've been trying to figure it out, especially after losing Claire. Not that Claire was really helping too much, but at least they had the stability of someone who knew the team and was connected to the heritage of the team.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's especially now as they're trying to get back on their feet and they're trying to figure it out. Now having to effectively start at scratch with what we've already seen to be one of the worst engineering teams. That's not an advantage.
Not one bit, but once again, they see a future over there. And they're building something over there though at Williams. They're building
a go-kart.
I'm not as bullish as Mike is, but I think there is something there that might come up with the next. If they could get, like any team out there, of course, could get the advantage on this new design and really capitalize on it, they could come up into the mid-tier in the next few years. There's a possibility. And that's probably what George Russell is looking at too, is just the potential of Williams moving up and Mercedes might be moving down per se. So he's keeping all his options open for the most part. And that's that right there. I don't mind him. I mean, he's a great driver. He could keep his options open all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it would take new ownership for them. I mean, it would take. I mean, that's what happened at Mercedes, right? They got new ownership, and it completely changed the dynamics there. So,
well, speaking about keeping his options open, it's reported that Pierre Gasly, the Frenchman himself, is open. And he is receiving interest from other teams as well. So he's keeping his future open with Marco and Red Bull because he really wants that Red Bull spot, even though Marco said he's not getting it again. But Gasly said he's confirming that he is receiving interest from other teams. That also might be including Williams as well. If there's a team out there that you see Pierre Gasly going to, Chaz, what do you think it is?
That's a really good question. I mean, that question assumes that he could go somewhere better than where he is right now, and I don't know that that's true. What are your thoughts? I'm curious to hear what you think.
Well, I said before, he really wants that Red Bull spot, but he's also looking at the money, and I think he's pushing that AlphaTauri more than he has pushed that Red Bull in the past, honestly. So I think he's really like applying himself so he could be applying for another job somewhere else, possibly. So if the money's right, he could go. And I don't see Williams really pushing out much money for him, but he may go to Alpine's out of the question because Fernando Alonso may quit at the end of the year. So there's a possibility for Alpine there.
Would that be a step forward for him, though?
Honestly, no.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he does very well at AlphaTauri. I think once again, he wants to be in that Red Bull spot. So he's really pushing, really pushing for that Red Bull spot. So we'll see how it goes with that. But I feel that, AlphaTauri is the perfect spot for him.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of started it off with it assumes that there's a better spot for him, right? Because I mean, let's look at the teams that are ahead of AlphaTauri. We've got Ferrari. He's not going to get one of those seats. We've got Mercedes, Mercedes. Not going to get one of those seats. McLaren, not going to get one of those. And then there's Red Bull, and he hasn't done. So I'll put it this way: Perez has done better with the Red Bull than he did last year.
Absolutely.
Right? So he's not going to get that seat back.
Out of those four, if he continues to prove himself, though, out of the four, I could possibly see him going to McLaren. to replace Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, no, that's a real possibility. That's a good call.
Out of the four, though.
Yeah, I agree. That's a real possibility.
In fact, that could be a good Twitter question of the week right there. And we could discuss this a little further next week is which team do you see Pierre Gasly going to? And that includes staying with AlphaTauri. So make sure you stay on our Twitter page right there at Former Racing and make sure you vote for us too. Right quick, I don't have any photos or anything like that, but your first take on the new 2022 car.
Mm-hmm.
Some reveals have come out today. It look really good, in my opinion. Look really sleek and help. From what I understand, it helps drivers there in the pack with dirty air because so many drivers, lose that momentum with the dirty air coming from the cars right now. So this will help bridge the gap to come up closer to racing and everything. So from what it looks like, it looks really, really good. It looks smaller than the other one too.
It does look a little bit smaller. I'm not sure whether it's a design thing. I haven't actually looked at the dimensions or seen a comparison between the two. Mm-hmm. But I would say that one of the biggest changes from an engineering standpoint seems to be that issue with dirty air. They gave an example of just the loss of downforce. So they were saying that between 10 and 20 meters, you lose between 35 and 46% of downforce with the current models, and with the new models, it's 4 to 18%, right? So we're talking about a huge difference in just their ability to drive close, especially around those corners. So I think it's really cool from that perspective. It looks super clean. Obviously, that front wing and that back wing are probably some of the bigger changes or the more noticeable ones, and they look really futuristic to me.
Well, it looks like they're going to have 10% ethanol.
Okay.
In there right now, and to bridge that gap to have zero emissions by 2025. It'll still be a combustible engine, but the bridge that gap to make it zero emissions by 2025 to help possibly bring in Volkswagen, i.e. Audi, and Porsche into the mix by 2025. Will make it very interesting on the field as well.
Yeah, it makes it. I'm also curious about that. Is that the same? I mean, is the car going to be effectively the same as a Formula E car at that point?
No, this will be a combustible engine.
No, I'm talking about in 2025.
No, it'll still be in the engine there too.
Okay.
So the Formula One has decided to go with the combustible engine from now on, basically. But as far as zero emissions, that's their goal coming out of the tailpipe.
So, I mean, what's it going to be running off of canola oil?
Possibly. Who knows?
Applesauce.
They're supposed to be revealing some more stuff later on with that car too, so it'll be nice to see. As you point out, I'll be very interested to see the liveries next year on these things.
They're going to look really good.
The Ferraris, the Red Bulls, the Mercedes. God, man, I just keep on going back to this. I'm sorry, but I wish McLaren would go back with that Monaco livery. Imagine that Monaco livery on that new car.
Imagine the Monaco livery on the current car. I mean, it's just so good. It's good. Period. It was great. I mean, I actually think. How do you feel about the Black Lives Matter livery for Mercedes? Were you a fan of it? I know Mike wasn't a fan of the black.
For the 2020 car?
Yeah.
I liked it. I like the black because for me, black looks sleek on a car. It's just, I'm like Mike too. I like history of the silver arrows and stuff like that. So I understand what they're trying to do this season to try and bridge the gap too on the two.
Yeah. because they wound up keeping it for the rest of the season. But I think, that I don't know. Maybe they didn't love it, as full season livery, because it kind of has a very retro vibe, and they're trying to look towards the future, right? Because it universally looks like a vintage car livery, right? So a rally car or something like that, it just kind of has that vintage feel. So maybe they just didn't want to do that. But I think it was. I'm with you though. I think it was undeniably great.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Please join us on Facebook and Twitter at Former Racing. Email us if you have a topic for us, anything to discuss on this show, the What If series, theformerracing@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Please also like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to help us grow this channel as much as possible. On that note, we'll see you next time right here on the F1 Starting Grid.
See you guys.